I did an experiment yesterday on my walk. I was out walking in the morning. I said hello and waved to everyone, and I will say about 1/3 of the people said something back. Otherwise, no response. This is the Loud Quiet Living the Empty Nest. Hey guys, welcome back. Episode 62 of the Loud Quiet. Thank you so much. We found out this week that we reached over 2,000 audio downloads.
Yeah,
so
big
that
milestone.
doesn't include video downloads. So yeah, that's, great for us. For us, we're happy
It
with
makes
that.
us feel good, right?
Yeah.
We did start this just as a way for us to stay connected, but it makes us feel kind of good that at least there's 2,000 of you that decided to listen to something.
Or
Or I guess
multiple times.
that's
Thank
true.
you to my parents for listening
For hitting this on
2,000
repeat.
times.
No, we've actually,
No, I know, yeah.
we've run into some people that have caught me off guard that
Yeah.
have said, "Oh yeah, no, I listen to one," and people that aren't necessarily empty nest category or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, either folks are enjoying us or mocking us, but at least they're downloading us.
Well, yeah. So and this week it was interesting because we actually had comments coming in on our YouTube, one of our shorts, and they were interesting. They were a little trolly.
Well-
one was a little trolly.
But it's so much fun.
Yes.
Troll me, it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. At least they called you old guy and didn't say old lady.
That's right.
So, you're the old one in the group.
That's right. And they put the laughy face there, so you know they weren't really. But
Okay.
in all seriousness, even if you are that person, thank you. Because you've engaged with it and it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And someone else said that they had had a similar experience as we put on one of our shorts with their wife.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what we're actually looking for is we do want y'all to comment. We do want to engage with you back and forth, and I promise we will, because we get to learn from you, and we can build a community of folks who are actually supporting each other or entertaining each other through the empty nest or beyond.
Yeah. And we're open to, hey, why don't you guys talk about this? I'm interested in this. I want to know about this, things like that. Just, because right now we just pull it from what's going on in our lives and,
Which is
and
really-
hope that it interests you.
That's kind of what the empty nest life is, and that's what this week is as well. It's not that we came into this planned. We had planned to do, it was a Duke alumni event down in Dallas. Down in Dallas makes it sound like the Hicks, but we, as y'all have heard 1,000 times already, we enjoy going down there, and having a Duke excuse to go there was kind of nice as well. We have started to try to get a little more connected now that we've had the freedom of time to be able to do some of that, including there's no way we would have gone to a happy hour in Dallas when Tegan was here in school or you and I were still involved in things that were up here.
I don't know that we would have done it if Tanner wasn't down there, and the reason for the event was the Duke SMU volleyball
That's right.
game. So it was a happy hour before the volleyball game.
And so we went down there, a place called Chelsea Corner. I always want to say Chelsea Market. Chelsea Corner. And apparently it's been around since 74. It's another one of those places. I know we got a lot of folks that are here in North Texas. Check out these places. They're neat. And I know the folks that live in Dallas are like, yeah, it's been around for decades. We know.
We just didn't do a lot on that side when we were dating. We spent a lot of our time in Deep Ellum. Deep Ellum went through its kind of rough patch, and now it's back.
Yeah.
So, Tanner was just at a concert down there on Thursday night. So we just didn't do a lot on the other side of 75 in that area, except restaurants.
Yeah.
So,
And we, the Duke things, we had actually started and we did some volunteer things and that, and it was all with the idea of trying to build connections. We've talked about on here how it is hard as an adult, and I think it's even harder as an adult empty nester to build friendships, to build connections. And so there's been a choice on our part to say yes to more of those kind of things, and this is one of those yeses that we chose to do. And it ended up being, sure, we met a few folks. It was it was really kind of funny. You could tell very quickly by the physical stature of the adults in the room that it was definitely a lot of the parents of the athletes, which was I actually had a lot of fun talking to some of those parents to get their perspective. They weren't necessarily Duke people, some were. But most of them just had their kids on the team. And it was a lot of fun to hear their stories. One of the moms hosted the whole team at their house in Preston Hollow for a dinner together. And when you're watching collegiate athletics on TV, you think of them as sort of the athletic bots that just performers on stage. These are humans. These are kids. These are kids in their teens and early 20s. It was kind of neat to hear the parent
And I'm
perspective.
sure that the parents probably appreciated that there was something going on because it gave them something to do before just, flying in, going to the game. So,
I was talking to
yeah.
one of the dads because he had said his younger child is in the traveling soccer scene, and that got us talking about Tanner. And I had said, yeah, I remember those days traveling with, when they were middle school or high school. I said, it's next level when y'all are doing this all over the country for college athletics. And yet it was kind of the same, too. Yes, it's big stage, NCAA D1, that sort of thing. But it was just parents
Yeah.
traveling together, and that was fun.
So yeah, it was fun, and we brought up the point that as we treated it as a yes, we like to meet people, we like to talk to people. Now, I will say I was not in the mood that night. It was rainy outside. It had been a long week. Everything was fine, but it just, you were feeling a little under the weather. It was just a day that Tanner was in a mood, and we were all, or he and I were like, we don't want to be here. So we like stood in the corner
Well, I had to
and we
go
were like, you
try to
go do
meet
your
people by
thing.
myself.
But I will say, and we have said this about Tanner, what you now do in your 50s, he's already doing in his 20s.
I know.
He is a master networker. Like,
He is more than willing to walk across the room, stick a hand out. And that's what we were thinking, that we talk about connections and the idea of making connections, and not just a business. This isn't just a business
no.
conversation
Yeah.
today. That was the example that got us started. Y'all were the ones that were kind of like, okay, go ahead. Y'all laughed at me. Like, all right, Rick, if you want to meet people, it's your
I'll
party,
be
that
over
sort of
here in
thing.
the corner with my drink and just observing everything.
And there was a time after a lot of the parents had left, because they were headed to they wanted to get to the game earlier than most of the rest of us, or some of us never
Or
made
not
it.
at all.
And I saw a guy. So it was just walk across the room. Hey, you're an alum, aren't you? And started talking. Well, it so turns out that this guy is a retired attorney and still does some other, but retired big law attorney. Well, then I kept doing the from across the room, like, come over here, trying to nod at y'all. And what does Tanner do? Wanders over there and immediately starts making that connection. And it's something that I wish I had done better in my 20s. I wasn't awful at it, but I really tended to view that sort of stuff as, I don't want to talk to people. I don't want to do this. I don't want to go to those things. And it probably shaped the career that I have that is in the more independent space. It's just later in life you realize that everything's based off of relationships. We're all humans and want to connect.
Yeah. So yeah, so it ended up being fun and valuable for him
Yeah.
especially, and that couple that y'all were or the man you were talking to and his wife later came up, said, "Oh, I'm going to check out your podcast because we're empty nesters," and
Right.
so
And who knows? If y'all are listening, we may get y'all on the show someday. So watch out. It is, and it was sort of comical after a bit that you and I just sort of, after Tanner started this conversation, well, then you and I just kind of went away. It basically became Tanner's. He's going around and meeting the other attorneys in the room, and
yeah, and I hung out with the 4-year-old that was in her
it was a
Anna
princess.
dress.
Yeah.
It was her Anna dress. Like, you're on my level in this group, so I'll talk to you. So yeah,
See, you got
it
to
was.
build connections as well.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a fun evening, and then we just headed to a restaurant. We decided to not go to the game, but
Sorry, Duke volleyball.
yeah,
We would have gone.
and then headed back over to one of Tanner's friends' houses, and I said, "Does he care that we?" And he's like, "No, he likes y'all. Come over." We were like, "Okay."
We
So,
do. I do have a little meter ticking in my head, though, because again, just like we celebrate being empty nesters, I would assume, I'm getting inside my kid's head, they're enjoying being non-parented young adults. And I set a little timer in my head of, we'll be here for a few minutes, but then even before they ask us to exit,
yeah.
we're going to just make our way home.
Yeah, and I just, I love because the whole night he's like, "Yeah, I think I'm just gonna go home. I'm not gonna go out." Okay, yeah, no, he went out. So,
Some band that they saw of a friend, and that's
and
what
again, I have to, because we hang out with him so much and they're friends, I have to remind myself they're 22 and 23. Sometimes I feel that way when I'm with them, but I'm 50.
I feel that way when I'm with them.
Yes.
And then I'm reminded the next morning that I am not in my 20s any longer.
So,
The nighttime Rick can be a very 20s kind of guy. Morning Rick is very
yeah.
50s.
You're the old guy.
That's right, as has been pointed out in the comments.
So, yeah.
That inspired, though, a larger thought. When you and I don't even know where we were walking or something along those lines. It may have been yesterday when we were walking. I don't
No, we
even
were
remember.
sitting out in the out on our porch
Sitting
because it was
outside in the
beautiful
beautiful weather.
yesterday. Yeah.
This is one of the 2 weeks that we get it, as I joke, the 2 weeks of beautiful weather in Texas. And okay, so it was business connection, it was kind of just fun connection, that sort of thing. But it tied in with something that we've been really focused on, especially the last week at church and others, just the what about neighborhood connections? And not just building friendships, but this idea of is there something that we, and I'm saying you, me, we, but also a more global we, to do better about building connections? Because it's not easy.
No, it's not. And like you said, we this was our discussion this week in life group, and it was about neighbors. And we have neighbors that have just recently moved in. I've waved to them, but 10 years ago when our other neighbors moved in, I took cookies over there. I gave them phone numbers, that kind of thing. You know, I don't tend to do that anymore. And I don't know. And I brought this up in group the other night is that, one thing now we all have ring cameras. We all have, I don't answer our door unless I know who it is when I see it on the ring
Yep.
camera. And you just never know what you're going to get if you just randomly go up and knock on someone's door that you don't know.
Do you think that, and I'm truly asking this sort of issue, do you think that we over index on that? Well, I don't know what's going to be on the other side of the door, whereas it's probably 98, or is it? Is it really 98% of the people are going to be welcoming of someone with a basket of welcome treats?
Oh, I'm sure they would be totally welcoming. I think we use it as an excuse.
Yeah.
It's just an out that, yeah, I don't know, and our neighborhood has definitely become very culturally diverse. And sometimes you don't know what kind of greeting you're going to get.
Is there a fear of offending? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, because like I said, if there's someone knocking at my door and I don't recognize them, I'm not going to the
Right.
door.
Right.
So and again, what is that? Device oriented. Now, there have been good things that we've had that, but it's almost we have become a very much pull your car in the garage, go in your house and not out, whereas 10 years ago we were all out front sitting in our chairs talking, and we still get together with our neighbors that
We've
we
known
have
since we
those
moved in together.
connections
Yeah.
with, but I don't know that we've been the most welcoming to our new neighbors.
Yeah, there almost becomes sort of a, well, I've got mine established.
Yeah.
And so mine's established, so I don't really think about helping others get established. And that's not right. It's not right because we were new once and because of the friendliness of others. And granted, when we moved in, everyone was new, so it's probably easier. But I think about our desire to perhaps move somewhere else. Wouldn't we want someone to come to the door? It was in group that we were talking about. It's often the treats, it's the goodies, it's that sort of thing. One of the most valuable things that could be offered along with that treat, that goodie, is here's a list of service providers that we love and recommend. Here's a great lawn care person. Here's a great plumber. Here's a great handy person. All of that. Wouldn't that be awesome if somebody came to your door and said that?
Well, and like we talked about, you used to have the welcome committee that was a part of your neighborhood, even before HOAs were a thing. and they would come by with all the info and all the, and like we talked about, churches used to do that too. I don't know if churches even do home visits anymore.
Well, and that requires that someone has visited the church for the church to know about it.
Oh, well, that's what I meant.
No, I'm
Like
agreeing
when,
with you.
yeah.
That actually that's another layer. It requires that person to have done something.
Yeah.
Whereas the connecting that a lot of folks need is, I'm new here. And imagine somebody that truly did just move from Bangalore. You couldn't get further away, right? And they're living there and they have no connectivity. Or maybe not Bangalore because there is a big community, but somebody that's moved from a country that doesn't have a lot of, or someone that just moved from Minnesota and they have no connections. They don't even know where to start. It takes somebody like, not us, you, me, but just someone to welcome them. And I don't know that we've done such a good job of that. Well, I
No.
know we haven't.
And I actually did, because we talked about this in group, and I actually did an experiment yesterday on my walk. I was out walking in the morning. I said hello and waved to everyone, and I will say about one third of the people said something back. Otherwise, no response.
And I'll give you the counter input, the data point to that. Thankfully, on my trail, we walked. Clancy and I were on separate trails. We don't walk together as a couple. We go our separate ways on Saturday morning. I did get the friendly waves back. Thankfully, I have though had that same experience as you, and I think that's one of those that we could get discouraged with that, and instead it's just almost a requirement. Plow through and build that, because I think a lot of it goes back to even what we talked about last week, that to find that unity requires some level of connectivity. It's a lot easier to vilify somebody or something or some community that you don't know well. And without that initial outreach, it would be kind of hard to build that relationship.
Yeah, I think, and everyone blames everything on COVID, but I think COVID did really, because what? We were stuck in our homes and me were very happy when we could get back out and do things, but there's a group of people that they would want to live that way their entire lives.
I'm gonna say COVID, and I think COVID, had it happened in the 60s, would not have created that result. COVID proved that a person could live a perceived satisfactory life because of the devices that
Technology.
exist, that allowed that when COVID was removed as a reason, that they realized, I don't actually need the outside world. And these are extreme, like we're describing extremes
Right.
here.
Yeah.
It is something that has been a crutch and has proven that technology leads to loneliness. There was an example that we had on the other side yesterday. And I was thinking about it when our neighborhood had a Diwali festival. Our neighborhood has had a strong influx of South Asian community. And you and I walked over to see the Diwali festival. And it's hard to set this up if you aren't visualizing it, but imagine the festival is over in a parking lot outside of the neighborhood pool. And between that parking lot is a grass field, and then there's a road. So Clancy and I are standing on the other side of the road. We're visible to every single, there's no way people wouldn't be able to see us. But because of it wasn't quite our culture, because there wasn't an actual event that had started yet, it was just people gathered, there was some food there was some music playing, but there wasn't an event yet. We didn't feel comfortable going over there. How would that have been different if someone had seen us, walked across and said, hey, are y'all new here? Or even if they just, do you want to know about come over and to the festival? I bet we would have been there. We might have been there for a while. Instead, we watched and listened to the music and said, boy, what a vibrant culture. Those are some neat beats.
Yeah.
And then turned around.
Well, and I think sometimes it doesn't matter what group it is.
Yeah.
I think sometimes groups put on things for their group.
Yeah.
And, oh, everyone is welcome. But like you said, I mean, and yes, we didn't do anything if we would have walked over maybe across the street, maybe, but it wasn't.
I think it's and it's not out of malice, and I want to make sure that
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
I'm just amplifying the point that I think it's not out of malice. I think it's all right, especially in a situation like that where you're talking about your sort of in theory the outsider community, and you're having a celebration around kind of your traditions, your culture. You're more thinking insular. This is a
That's, yeah.
comfortable, exactly, a comfortable place to be. You're not looking outside. And I think that's what happens in the reverse of, and it's not that we're the outsiders, but as this neighborhood is our place, we're comfortable here. We know what it's like. We aren't necessarily looking at that, air quote, person across the street who is looking in wondering, boy, I'd like to be connected to that. What's going on over there?
Yeah. And I brought up this point, like we've talked about several times, thinking about moving and stuff. And it's almost like I've mentally checked out of our neighborhood, minus our group that we are still connected with and will always be connected with no matter where we live. But, I've almost already, in my mind, moved us to wherever we're moving,
Yeah.
which is not right. And it's not like I just, you know,
Well, you're not
don't
throwing
do
out the
right.
bird to
Yeah.
everybody as you drive to the
Yeah.
neighborhoods.
So,
I mean, maybe you are. I don't drive with you all the
no.
time, but
But I think in my head, I'm like, well, I don't really need to get to know anyone else because we're
yeah.
not going to be here much longer, which who knows? We could be here for another 10 years. We don't know.
And that's
But
what, when you told me that, I said, I got kind of a counter feel to that. And it was, I don't know that we're going anywhere soon. And every day that we don't act as connectors is a day that there's an opportunity that could be missed for someone to just have a better relationship, a better existence, a better just, or be able to know that when their toilet leaks, they got somebody they can call, sort of thing. And by the way, I'm not trying to say, oh, and look how awesome I am at this. I'm failing at this. It's the realization of I haven't checked out because I think that inertia is going to keep us so sticky that it'll be interesting to see what happens. I know this, even if we were to move a week, a month, a period from now, that's still, even in that week, that's still 6 days that there could have been an opportunity to meet somebody.
yeah. And we were talking about neighborhoods and the people that live in apartments, were saying they don't see anyone, and that's Tanner hasn't met anyone that lives above him, below him, next door to him. He has a neighbor that they share kind of their little entryway. And I don't think he's ever, he said he waves to people at the mailbox, but,
Yeah. I
so
didn't.
it's just, especially because he has a garage that he just goes in his garage and goes right up to his.
I didn't. I think back to, and this isn't even a technology statement. When I lived at Saxony, there on Montfort, I didn't meet a single person.
No, but we knew the girl next door because she sang. We could hear her singing.
We knew of the girl
Yeah,
next
we don't
door.
know who she was.
I don't think I ever saw her.
No, I don't either. That's what I was thinking. All I know is she sang. She liked to sing.
Hey, there's a lot worse things one could hear through a wall, so I'm kind of glad it was just singing.
But yeah, no, it's
People have talked about that, the technology, the alleys, not the neighbors, the
yeah,
alleys, but the street, the alleys, the fact that you are always walking in your back door. I mean, I see the neighbor that's across the driveway, the alley from us, has lived there the exact same length of time that we
know.
have. I don't even
I
know their
just wave.
name.
No, I know. I wave. And you mentioned the alleys, but the alleyways in the neighborhood. But what was so good about having those is that the kids loved it because they
That's
had
right.
3 yards that they could go across because we knew neighbors on either side. And I think
That's a good
that
point.
is a huge factor. And bringing it back to the empty nest, what were we doing outside watching our kids play?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, how are you? Welcome. That was the majority of how we spent our time when they were younger was, and not at activities. They were out front playing. And so parents tend to be watching or out there too.
Right.
That's how you meet people. And so once that element has been taken away, unless you have already established those
Right.
relationships, we just aren't, we sit out front, you guys sit out front on the porch, but
We haven't done it in
the
so
only
long.
people that really I see out front are just people who are walking for exercise.
Right.
And that's so, yeah.
Yeah, And we've talked about it before, and it's going to be a continual real issue in the empty nest, and that is how do you build those relationships without kids? And I think certainly finding activities and connecting through activities and that sort of stuff, I think it really is going to be a willingness to be, let's go back to that happy hour, a willingness to identify someone across the room and just take a risk and stick a hand out.
Yeah.
Because that's how I met that person. And it was a very safe environment. It's a Duke alumni happy
Right.
hour, right? It
And
was
that,
structured
yes.
in such a way that
Right.
nobody's going to go, why are you talking to me?
Yeah.
I think that boldness, though, has to be required to build connections in the neighborhood in a different way.
And I think that is a good point. Again, this was a organized event
Yeah.
with people that you had similar or something
You had
you
an
had
affinity.
something, yes, with, you know, not like the drunk girl that was sitting next to us at the restaurant in Tucson
Yeah, I
that
didn't
kept
talk
on
to
wanting
her.
to talk to us.
I cut her off.
And so, but hey, she was trying to make a connection.
So she
We
was
just
looking for
weren't
an affinity
interested.
around alcohol.
Sometimes people need the little bit
Liquid
of liquid
courage.
courage to get them going. But I think if we can help in the empty nest, if we can help those of us who have young adult children develop that skill, it will benefit them in ways that they don't even realize.
I mean, absolutely. Because I know, no, I won't say that my career was stunted or anything like that. It went a different direction. There's an amplification the career could have had if I were a better connector early on. I didn't recognize that need. My dad was a physician, right? He had a practice. And only later in life did I realize, well, actually, he had to do connections too, because when he was starting his practice, he went and met pediatricians.
Yes, just
Hey, pediatricians, I'm new in town. If you got kids that have ear issues, I've got a ear,
Yeah.
nose, and throat office. So even my perception of my lone wolf vision of my dad and his entrepreneurial sense wasn't true
No.
either.
And I think because almost in our category of age, sometimes the people that were really good at that, you saw them as just cheesy douchebag salespeople.
Because they were looking for a transaction, they were
Right.
looking for a gain rather than a connection.
And so I think that kind of turned people off,
Yes.
can turn people off. But if you're doing it genuinely, and, I think in the back of our heads, if you're doing something like, say at an event like we were at, you are looking for, Tanner got two great connections, both in the law world but he doesn't do it. And I've said this, he's a douchebag, but he's not an a-hole. And
Right.
so, it's just
And I think it comes down to
confidence.
there's confidence, and I sincerely think that he is looking to meet a person. Period. End of sentence.
Yeah.
If there is a transactional value that comes out of that meeting, great. He would not feel disappointed in a conversation with someone if there weren't a value that is exchanged. And I think there's two ways. There's a great book called Give and Take. And I'm brain farting whether it's Gladwell or it's one of the names that's out there, but it's Give and Take. And it's the idea that who are the ones that succeed most in business? And you'd think that no, of course it's not the takers because people are annoyed with them, and it's definitely not the givers because they're just sacrificing themselves. It's got to be the give and take back and forth. It's not. It's actually the people that go into every conversation with the spirit of what can I give that other person that end up having better career trajectories. I think that can be true too in the empty nest post-career relationship. Instead of, I see the neighbor across the street and think, oh good, I can get him to be a listener on the loud quiet, which I don't. That's silly. But let's say that I did that, as opposed to, hey neighbor, you're new here. How can I help you? Right? If you have that spirit, it's totally different. And I see that Tanner's not necessarily, he doesn't have much to give right now. I do think that he has figured out that the art of meeting people is about meeting people. Period. End of sentence.
Yeah.
Not looking for any objective out of it.
No.
Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox. Wow.
So
So go read Give and Take.
but there's the challenge for us. And again, we did have that challenge from our one of our pastors. You know, what are you going to do this week
Yeah.
to meet a neighbor? I didn't necessarily meet a new neighbor, but like I said, I did the experiment, and when I was somewhere else, I was generally this week trying to be smile on my face because I do have RBF. So, and those of you who
Google
don't
it.
know what that is, you can look it up. But I really did try to smile more at people, just in the store, in the wherever I was. I really did try this week to be better about
Yeah.
that.
And it's the conscious choice, because if we live in our own mental bubbles, our own physical bubbles, we'll never break out. But that conscious choice, that person that you smiled at might have had a massive impact on their life, and you'll never know it. And that's not the point of it. But if more of us were to do that,
The world would be a happier
I was
place.
going to say, yeah, can I cut that out?
We'll end it on a
Hey,
cheesy.
I edit it, so I can just strike anything I want. You and I do not do a lot of editing, that's for sure.
No. So there you go. Connections. Try to make a new connection this week, or just
And tell us what that connection was. How
Yeah.
about that? Make a connection with us. Ooh. Sorry, that was too transactional. Never mind. Just go out and meet somebody.
yes. All right. There you go. Thanks again for listening to The Loud Quiet, Living the Empty Nest.